Today, I'm going to teach you how to master your shotgun aim with the 3 essential aspects of shotgun aiming that most people are getting wrong. Welcome back to another Zero Build Mastery video where we cover the essentials of Fortnite Zero Build and deep dive into those concepts, break them down, analyze them, teach you everything about them, and then also give you drills that you can follow along with to master your gameplay. So today's video is shotgun aim. Let's get into it. First things first, you're gonna follow along with me, load up the Zero Build Mastery course, map code above, get in here, go over to the gun room, grab a couple shotguns. I like to grab the Wrecker Revolver because it's kind of the meta this season. Also grab a Sentinel Pump and a combat shotgun. These 3 shotguns will do you well. Go ahead and grab some shockwave grenades as well, and then head over to Aim Island right here. All right, now we're gonna head over to the right, and you have this tracking area over here. And we're gonna come over here to this guy right here, this little jumping bot in the middle of these kind of tracking bots over here. So the first thing I wanna talk about is visual focus. Visual focus is so important with shotgun aim or any close range combat. What people don't realize is that their visual focus makes up 90% of their aim. If you lose track of your enemy, if you can't see your target, you're not gonna hit them. If you have bad focus, kind of like wavering focus during a fight, you're just gonna hit bad shots, you're not gonna land good damage, and you're probably gonna lose the fight against somebody who is using better focus. You'll be incredibly surprised how much your visual makes up for your aim. The hand coordination or the thumb coordination is generally better than you think. Usually most of your flaws are with your visual focus. So if you can really get your visual focus locked in, you'll be a much better aimer across the board. 2 ways that you can do that are 1, turn off your crosshair. Turn off your reticle. Go to the game UI settings, turn off reticle, turn off ammo indicator, and then just start playing around with no reticle. Trust me, this is going to be a big difference maker for a lot of people. I made an entire video about this and you should read the comments. There's just an endless amount of evidence that people have no idea how bad their visual focus is or how easily they get distracted by things like their crosshair or enemy shield cracking or their own damage indicators that flash on your screen. You know, you got that red little like arc that appears or that blue arc when you get shot. It's all very distracting, and if you're not fully locked in watching your enemy, you're gonna miss shots. So we're gonna turn that reticle off, and then we're just gonna sit here and we're gonna practice on this bot. And we're gonna watch the bot with our eyes. We're gonna lock in and read his movements, and you'll surprise yourself at how well you can hit shots without having a reticle. Your reticle is the center of your screen. If you lock in on your enemy, you'll be very surprised at how good your hand coordination is as long as your eyes are focused on your enemy. It's just like playing baseball or any other bat or racket sport, right? You want to watch the ball come into your bat. You're looking at the ball and you're not looking at your bat. In this metaphor, the bat is your crosshair. We're not going to be looking at our crosshair. We're going to be looking at the ball, which is the enemy. And yeah, again, you'll surprise yourself. Close range, you're able to hit way better shots than you think when you're just locking in on your enemy. Now at longer ranges, you're gonna have a little bit of a harder time, and I've covered this in my smooth tracking mastery video, one of the last videos I made, is at longer ranges, that's when that reticle kind of matters. You need to start lining up the reticle to the enemy, and it's not so much about the enemy movements that you're reading, it's more about, see how I'm missing shots here? It's because I don't have a reticle. At longer ranges, you need that reticle. And that's why I don't recommend leaving your crosshair off. As much as people find that they love having their crosshair off because they're really, really good in close range fights, not really ideal for those long range fights when you don't have a scoped weapon that has its own separate red dot, right? If you just got a crosshair on screen that's missing, and you're using a third-person camera gun or an AR, it's gonna be a little tricky. So I do recommend turning it back on when you're not practicing. It's really just a good way to get your visual focus locked in and understand how important visual focus is. Another great way to improve your visual focus is with this video right here that I made a while ago. It's called the Aim Training FPS Eye Exercise Warm-Up. This is kind of a crazy name, but basically look up Toby1 Shinobi Eye Exercise. You can watch this video and basically it's just a ball moving around on your screen in a bunch of different patterns, and it's got a background that's moving. It's like Fortnite scenery in the background, and it really trains you to focus on the moving enemy or the target rather than being distracted by the movement in the background, because you will not believe how easily you can be distracted by just like something moving in the background. Somebody in the background driving a car, or maybe some wildlife or whatever it is, right? You get very easily distracted in a fight. If that happens, you miss a shot, right? So this here will train you to really lock in on your target and not get distracted by those distractions in the background. So this is definitely a video that you can watch before you even jump into Fortnite. It can really warm up your visual aim, and then you can play without the crosshair off, and then your visual focus will really be locked in. All right, now let's go ahead and talk about the next essential aspect of shotgun aim, and that is crosshair placement. Now, I made an entire zero build mastery video on crosshair placement recently. You definitely want to watch that. I'm not going to cover it as in depth, but I'm going to give you the gist of it. Basically, 80% of your aim, just crosshair placement, just putting your crosshair in the right place and letting the enemy run into it and just pulling the trigger, making it a timing thing instead of a hand-eye coordination flicking thing. Just make it a timing thing, and you're gonna have much more consistent accuracy if you do that. You're gonna do a little micro flick, a little micro correction sometimes, so that you can hit a good shot. But if you get your crosshair in the right place and you just let your enemy walk into it, it's a lot easier than having to flick and do sort of these things, right? A ton of players make the mistake of doing flicks when they shotgun aim. They do this, right? This is their aim with a shotgun. They're like, why am I so bad at shotguns? Because 80% of it is setting your reticle ahead of time and letting the enemy move into it and then doing a micro flick. So that is the difference right there. I mean, that literally makes up 80% of aim, right? So if you're not doing that, you're missing out on 80% of gains of shotgun aim because you're looking like this. So you ever watch like streamer, content creators, pros, their aim looks very smooth. It's like they can predict where the enemy's going. It's because they're predicting where the enemy's going. It's crazy. It's crazy. So a good way to practice that is with this spot right here. I mean, this is very, very basic. The next good place to practice it is uneven 1v1. You can go over here, jump in here, and there's this bot moving, and you got uneven ground. Now basically you're gonna have to learn how to set your crosshair with your own movement. So if I'm jumping to the left, I want to set my crosshair down to the right, and then I jump and it crosses the enemy as I jump into the air and move to the left. It rises into the enemy when I jump, and it goes to the left when I'm moving to the left. So therefore I set it to the right. If he's going over, if I'm moving to the right, now I'm gonna set my crosshair to the left. And then I just have to make a micro correction. Just a little micro flick to get a good shot. And you're just gonna practice this, jumping around, even sliding, setting that crosshair at the right location, and then doing that micro flick to get a good shot. Shotgun aim becomes easy once you understand this concept, once you start putting your reticle in the right place and moving your body more than just flicking around. If I try to just fight this guy and I'm flicking the entire time, it's gonna look pretty bad, it's gonna look jarring, and it's gonna reduce your accuracy a ton, right? If you're just doing this the whole time, you're not really moving your movement, and you're not really relying on movement or your crosshair placement, it's just all kinds of bad, right? So instead, what we do is we set our crosshair in the right spot. If we're finding this guy super close, and we just read his visual movements, right? We visually focus on what he's doing with his legs, and we set our crosshair at a place where we think he's going to go, and then we pull the trigger as he crosses into it. We're not trying to track him dynamically and keep up with him the whole time, so that's really important. So you will have to do a micro flick in most cases. I'm gonna go ahead and exit here. The next thing that I wanna talk about is that micro correction, or the flicking. The flicking is certainly an aspect of shotgun aim. It shouldn't be overlooked. It definitely is an aspect, but I would say it's about 20% of it, right? The other 80% is the crosshair placement, but that 20% definitely matters. That's the difference between landing a good shot or a mediocre shot. So I'm calling that last 20% reactive aiming instead of predictive aiming. So if we come over here, we're gonna see these little targets falling from these boxes right here. This is a really good way to practice your reactive aim or your flicking, right? You can go over here and you can reduce the speed of the bots with a switch if you want, if you find them a little too tricky, which I do recommend for most players. And then you have two different size bots, one that is really small, moves really fast, and then one that's a little bit larger, a little bit easier. And then you can change the distance at which you shooting from to kind of make things easier or harder. You're gonna have a harder time at a closer range because you're gonna have to move your reticle a little bit more. You're just gonna sit here and you're gonna visually focus super hardcore and just try to get good flicks. Just get really locked in and practice your flicking. It's just gonna be a really quick movement, and then just pull the trigger when you see it cross. You're gonna try to hard stop as well. Try to get some friction. If you're on a mouse, you're gonna wanna put your fingers on that pad and stop, come to a hard stop. So it looks like this. You don't wanna be like smoothly flying over people. You want to come to a hard stop. With aim assist on a controller, it's going to be a little bit easier. It's going to kind of slow down your reticle a little bit as you cross over them. So feel out that slowdown. Once it slows down, you know, once you visually see your crosshair come over the enemy, just pull the trigger, and then the slowdown should help a little bit. Now with these little guys, they're pretty tricky, but this is a good way to step up that crosshair placement, or step up the reactive aim, the flicking. And you can see if you're locked in, if you're really focusing, you can hit some pretty crazy shots. You can flick a lot faster than you expect. This is also a good way to tune your controller settings or your mouse and keyboard settings to find the right sensitivity, because you do need to hit these type of shots when people are jumping over your head, flying through the air, catching you off guard, that sort of thing. You do have to react sometimes and just land a flick shot, you know? There are unexpected times where you don't really rely on that crosshair placement, when it's all just like, whoa, what's happening? Boom, you know, that sort of thing. That's going to be reactive, and you need to be able to do that. A good place for controller sensitivity, if you're playing with on a controller, is to use advanced options and put look horizontal and look vertical around 30%, maybe a little bit faster than 30, but around 30% on advanced is generally a good starting point. And then you can also play with your look input curve, which will make a huge difference. Linear or exponential. Linear's generally recommended, especially for close range fighting. Exponential has a little bit more of a slowdown. It kind of like eases into things, where linear is exactly what you input is what you get out. There's no slowdown. There's no, there's no difference. It's basically just raw aim. But if you master that, it's a little bit harder to master with long range aim. But if you get linear down, it's a lot more consistent than exponential in most cases. All right, now I'm gonna give you 2 more drills you can get into to really master that shotgun aim, both reactive and predictive. We're gonna go over here to combat movement versus bots. This is a great area to get that movement down, or to get the reactive and the predictive aiming down. Basically, you're going to go through this little area, you're going to go into these hallways and these pillars, and you're going to really practice lining up that crosshair. Now, again, a huge part of it is crosshair placement. Focus on crosshair placement first, and then you can let those micro flicks come into place. But basically, get down your crosshair placement so that if you come around a pillar, you're aiming to the left, you pull the trigger as you walk out to the right, and it crosses them. That's how you get like really smooth aim, really good consistent damage, is setting that crosshair in the right place and not having to do too much. Now you're gonna go ahead and start jumping around like this. You're gonna come out and you're gonna set that crosshair down. If you're jumping around a corner, you're gonna set it down opposite of your movement. Let it come over the enemy and then just pull the trigger like that, right? Nothing crazy, nothing super hard. It looks easy, and it actually is easy if you do it right. Once you get it down, you're really gonna start to feel, oh, okay, this is how it's done. And, work on your movement as well as you do this. But yeah, play through here. You can turn off half the bots if you want. You can turn on more bots. You can make the bots really, really fast and really cracked if you turn on insane mode. This will basically make them harder, faster, and they also have shotguns this way. But yeah, it's kind of like up to you how you want to practice this, how advanced you are already. But this will get your crosshair placement and your flicking down if you just work through all these little pillars, because it's really focused on landing good shots, really good crosshair placement when you're moving like this. And you can also work on your movement. This whole area is kind of focused on movement. But as you can see, when you turn on the insane mode, they start to hit those shots, and they're pretty hard. But it is one of my favorite places to practice just like natural aim and natural movement. All right, next up, we're gonna emote to go back to Aim Island, then we're gonna go back home, and then we're gonna finish up with this last scenario, which is flick shots. Flick shots is, part of the aim course, which we have the Earn Your Belt Challenge. This gets you a belt color depending on how good you are across all these scenarios. All these par scores right here are basically the par to reach a black belt score, which currently is 263 to 307 on the course for the gauntlet run. And then if you're really cracked, you can get a 2nd degree black belt. We also assign these belts in the Discord depending on your scores, so you generally know what kind of raw mechanical skill players have in the Shinobi Clan Discord. So yeah, each one of these scenarios is going to focus on a different aspect of aim or movement, primarily with zero build. So we're gonna go over here and go into flick shots, and this is all about crosshair placement with a little bit of micro flicking. You gotta land a good shot. This is really gonna train you to land good damage instead of like mediocre damage, because these guys have like 68 HP. So you have to land a combat shotgun shot for over 60 damage or over 68 damage, and It's a little bit harder than you think. See, that was a 20. That's because I'm not visually focusing. See, I moved my hand right there, I'm distracted. If you don't lock in, you're not gonna hit good shots. So you really have to focus on their movement, lock in, get that crosshair in the right spot, and then pull the trigger when they get there. And then you're gonna have to make a little micro flick sometimes so that you can hit good shots. So when you're locked in, it's gonna look something like this. And if you're not, it's gonna look like it was when I was talking, right? Because it's hard to focus when you're talking. One of the challenges of being a content creator or streamer is talking and trying to fight it's just hard. So yeah, go ahead and run the flick shot scenario, get that crosshair down, get the little micro flicks down on some fairly predictable enemies, the fairly predictable movement, and that'll really help in your shotgun fights. And the nice thing about that is you're gonna get a measurable score so that you can see your improvement over time, which can be really motivating and really tell you if you need to work on certain aspects of the game. All right, and to finish up the video, I wanna show you some examples of real in-game footage, break down some footage here to show you how much predictive aim and how much reactive aim I'm doing in these fights, in shotgun fights, okay? So here we are, we're in BR. Got two guys down the hill here. This guy gets shot in the back. And right here, I go for a flick. I go for a quick little flick, and you can see flicks can be inconsistent because, you know, it's a very quick thing. It happens so fast. It's not timing based. It's completely hand-eye coordination and reading your enemy. And I read this guy wrong. Look, he looks like he's running over to my right, but he stops. And so I read it wrong. I over flick and I miss. And that's okay, that'll happen. But now look what happens when we go to a more predictive aim, where I'm setting up my reticle to the left right here, letting it fall over my enemy to the right, and we pull the trigger as it crosses them, a much better shot. Now we're on 60 pings, so that actually came off a little bit weird, a little bit delayed, but that's okay. You know, I felt like that could have been a better shot, but that's okay. Now we set up our crosshair once again, roughly where he is as we move backwards. Now we gotta do a little flick up to the left, you know, not a huge flick, just a small one, because we've set our crosshair in the right spot based on our own movement and based on where our enemy is moving. Cool. He throws a bunker. He's up there. We're trying to get him to come down or just get a shot on him. We hear him jumping over our back, so we get into cover. And now look where we set up our crosshair. So this guy could come out over here, or he could come out over here. I'm setting my crosshair down low, and now I'm going for a jump shot. See where the crosshair is placed? Just a classic jump shot, boom. Just a micro flick, just a micro adjustment on this jump shot. See, I go up, and then I'm like, oh, I need to flick a little bit to the right. And boom, that's when we land a consistent damage for 70. He throws another bunk. Okay, now I know he's gonna go for a camera break right here because I've just done this 1,000 times. You do enough bunker fighting at higher levels against good players, you understand what they're gonna do. He's gonna try to jump over my head and break my camera so that I can't see him. So I'm gonna go ahead and counter that by jumping out to the left, spin around, and look where I'm setting my crosshair. Set my crosshair over the left, and I'm sliding, I'm landing, I'm jumping into a slide, landing backwards, going to the right, and pulling the trigger as it crosses him. There's a small flick right there, but for the most part, 80% of the aim is just setting up the crosshair as my body moves and pulling the trigger when it crosses him. Again, it looks a little weird because there's some latency. Okay, now we got another enemy coming in. We go ahead and grab his wrecker because that's going to make things a lot easier. Start healing up. And this guy's coming in. Get some AR shots on him. And now we're in a bush fight. And a big thing with shotgun fighting in general is to try to stay grounded. Try not to leave your feet too often and enter these jumps unless you're jumping over somebody's head and breaking their camera, which is getting completely off their screen. If you're gonna be on your enemy's screen at all, you don't really wanna be in a jump animation because it's a very easy trajectory to read. People know exactly where you're going next and they can just line up that crosshair and land a really, really good shot. So you mostly wanna stay grounded and you wanna enter little quick slides left and right, little sprints and stopping, because that stuff is really, really hard to read and you can really make your enemy miss. So you see me going for a lot of that stuff in these bush fights, and I recommend that. It's just kind of like doing this sort of stuff until your crosshair gets in that right spot and you find your enemy in your crosshairs, then you pull the trigger. And look at that. Those last 3 shots were pretty much all crosshair placement. I get right here and I start moving to the left and I whip my crosshair to the right. So there's a little bit of flick. I let it come over him and then I pull the trigger. And then we go straight into a jump with this Flowberry Fizz, low gravity. We set our crosshair down to the left. And now all we have to do is pull the trigger. That's as easy as that could have been right there. Just pull the trigger and the aiming becomes easy. One more example of this is when you use movement items such as shockwaves or, Flowberry Fizz shockwaves. So I'm gonna do a Flowberry Fizz shockwave, really low gravity, fast movement here, and I'm setting my crosshair low. I know this guy's up on this hill. I'm setting my crosshair low. It rises into my enemy, and then I pull down the crosshair one more time because it's gonna do it again. Pull it down. Now I'm just turning my crosshair a little bit and I'm moving back to the right. So I set my crosshair in front to the left. I make a micro flick. So right there, you can see there's that little 20% we're talking about. Oh, I crossed a little past him. Now we got to do a small flick adjustment and we land 80 for that. Even though it's a body shot to his legs, still a good shot. Because we had our crosshair roughly in the right spot, we didn't have to flick too much. Now look where I'm setting my crosshair again. Down to the right. And we jump over. And we do another little flick, generally get our crosshair in the right spot, and then we do a little mini flick right here. Boom. Just to get onto that shoulder head area. When you're aiming shotguns, you want to aim for the shoulder height. Shoulders is really good. It's going to land that nice precision damage and a lot of pellet spread on the shoulders. Kind of the best bang for your buck. If somebody ducks, they're actually going to land their head into a pure headshot. So it's generally safe to land around neck level or shoulder level when you're aiming your shotgun. Now, a couple more things that I always get questions about are, when do you aim down sights with a shotgun? Well, that really depends. If you're outside of like 10 meters of your enemy, you generally want to aim down sights, but it depends on what shotgun you're using. But in most cases, aim down sights if you're outside of the 10-meter mark, because if you don't aim down sights and you're like maybe 15 meters out and you do just a hip fire shot, you get about 35 damage. You aim down sights with a sentinel, you get 47, right? It's a nice little damage boost. You also want to aim down sights when an enemy is not looking at you and you've got an easy shot. So even if you're in close range, your enemy's kind of running away from you, you might as well go for the aim down sights, precision damage on their head. Then you're going to hit a huge shot because all your pellets, those pellets get, the pellet spread basically tightens up when you aim down sights. Now with a shotgun like the Wrecker Revolver, aiming down sights becomes even more important. You can see how giant my reticle is right here. 30 damage. And if we don't go for headshots, we are going for headshots now. Not aiming down sights. Gonna take absolutely forever to kill this guy. As soon as we aim down sights, guy dies instantly. So it's incredibly important to aim down sights with something like a Wrecker Revolver because you can see how tight that pellet spread gets. And the last thing you really want to master with a shotgun, if you're using pump shotguns, is pump swapping. I won't spend too much time on this, but basically is you're gonna shoot your shotgun, swap to your AR, and finish the fight. Boom. All right, y'all, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please leave a like on the video. Really helps me out. If you want to get your aim and movement absolutely cracked at Fortnite, check out the Zero Build Mastery map code above. I guarantee you won't regret it. And the final two things you can do to take your game to the next level is watch my entire playlist for Fortnite Zero Build, my must-watch playlist on my YouTube channel. It's all my best videos, the absolute essentials to get cracked at Fortnite. I promise I won't let you down. And then lastly, you can join up as a master level member in the Shinobi Clan Discord using the link in the video description down below. And when you join up as a master, you get access to private trainings with myself and other masters 2 times a week, as well as access to those recorded sessions on YouTube. So you'll be able to see those training videos come up in your YouTube algorithm just as if they're my normal videos, but you usually get them about twice a week, which is great if you can't make the training session because you can watch it later. All right, now we're on to the next mastery video, and that is going to be striking movement. How to use your movement effectively in combat to absolutely dominate your opponent. So let's get into it.